My name is Anita May, 29. I can tell you the exact sound the world makes when grief is performed. The little balloon pop of a group chat dinging in sequence. Sad to hear. He's with Grandma now. Followed by the absence where real sorrow should live. That's what happened when my grandfather died. The man was practically a blank space in conversation. My dad's dad, a ghost mom, kept sweeping out of frame with a brittle laugh. Cold, prideful, stingy. She said he skipped my third birthday just to prove a point. Nobody ever explained what point. I saw him maybe once a year. He'd arrive with a paper check for $50 and a look that stayed on me a beat too long, like I was a radio station only he bothered to tune. No hugs, no long stories, just that look and the same question. What are you building, Anita? Then he was gone. 87. Quiet. A voicemail from my uncle. 2 sentences in the paper. Life clicked forward like nothing had happened. 2 weeks later, a certified letter thumped onto my doormat. Real paper, real ink, a small graveyard of stapled pages behind a law firm header. I opened it on autopilot, one knee pressing a ridge into a warm heap of unfolded laundry. I expected a tax error, a parking ticket, anything but the sentence that followed my name over and over again. Sole beneficiary. Not a portion, not a fair share. All of it. A paid-off house, a retirement account. Dividend income. A safe deposit box I had never heard of. It added to $840,000 and change. I read the letter twice, then a third time, waiting for the word mistake to appear like a watermark if I squinted. It didn't. My phone rang before my brain caught up. Mom. Her voice was spun sugar. Sweetheart, did you hear about the will? Isn't that odd? How did you... Your Uncle Brian mentioned it, she said gently, too gently. We're all just confused, honestly. Why would he leave it to you of all... The sentence dissolved into hums. Anyway, we agree it should be shared. This money belongs to the family. The family, not me. Not the name printed on the letter twice per page. Did Grandpa ever help you when you asked? I said. She exhaled a laugh without humor. Never. He never lifted a finger, which is why this is... Maybe he decided to lift one. The sugar fell out of her voice like a cup shattering. Anita, don't be difficult. By nightfall, my phone became a lighthouse for every ship I thought had sunk. Cousins offering moral reflections about greed. Uncle Brian wanting to talk as adults. My sister, Kiaisi, typing and deleting in the family chat like smoke signals. Even Liam, my boyfriend, texted from a late shift. Answer if you want, or don't. I'm outside in 20. I stared at my screen long enough to see my own face in it, the version of me trained to fix, to smooth, to apologize on cue. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Maria, not the cousin, not the friend of a friend, my lawyer. The adult who speaks the language they switch to when they want you confused. We printed everything. We highlighted verbs. We ate noodles out of the carton at my kitchen counter while Liam washed bowls we hadn't used, just to move, to do, to be steady in the hum under my ribs. The meeting invite arrived 2 days later with Mom's favorite word, maturely. Sunday, our house, she said, the benevolent queen. Everyone will be there. She didn't say, bring your checkbook. She didn't have to. Sunday pulled up in gray light, and a knot in my stomach I could have sworn had knuckles. The driveway looked like a parade lineup. Uncle's Tahoe, my sister's dented Corolla, a truck so lifted it felt like a punchline. Liam squeezed my hand. You don't owe anybody a performance, he said. If you say the word, I walk you out. I brought someone, I told him, nodding to Maria in the passenger seat, flipping the last page of a draft letter. Maria didn't look up. Remember, she said, no signatures, no improvising, and if they cry, especially if they cry, I finished. Mom opened the front door before my knuckles reached it. She wore her version of warmth like a fitted cardigan. Her eyes slid to Maria and stuck there. Oh, she said, smile tight. You brought someone. Funny, I said, so did you. Inside, the living room was staged like an intervention. Chairs dragged into a circle that somehow wasn't a circle because the 2 men in suits had squared off the space with briefcases and a stack of papers thick enough to stop a bullet. My dad was already sitting, hands between his knees. My sister pretended to scroll without seeing. A stranger who might have been someone's spouse perched by the fireplace, small and apologetic. "Please sit," Mom said, indicating a chair across from the suits, the place a camera would point. Maria stayed standing, arms folded. One of the men introduced himself as Mitch, a consulting attorney, a phrase shaped like a cushion. "We're here to present a document that would allow the inheritance to be transferred into a family-managed account," he said smoothly. "Entirely voluntary," Mom chimed in, that word bitten in half. "About fairness. Grandpa wouldn't have wanted division." My chest lit like a switchboard. Maria stepped forward, expression almost bored, and took the stack. Page 2, page 4, the last. Her voice didn't rise. "Did you draft this yourself?" Mitch's jaw moved a fraction. "Our firm worked with—" "This implies the signer is mentally unfit to manage assets without oversight," Maria said, clean as a bell. "This is coercive. If you persist, we pursue legal remedies." The room shifted, then tilted. Dad looked at his shoes. My sister finally looked at me. Mom went pale, not with guilt, but with calculation gone wrong. "It's just precautionary," she said. "We weren't trying to—" "Trying to what?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like a hallway you whistle through so you aren't afraid. To take what someone gave me because it didn't go to you? Everything in the house learned how to be still. Even the digital clock above the TV became a red mouth holding its breath. I stood. The paper felt heavier than it should have in my hands. I placed it back on the table the way you set down a hot pan. "You thought I'd come alone," I said. Maria slid a folder across the table like dealing a card. "Cease and desist," she said to no one and everyone. "Any further attempts to manipulate or defame my client regarding this inheritance will result in a lawsuit. You will receive this formally tomorrow." Uncle Brian cleared his throat for a speech that never arrived. Mitch looked for an exit that wasn't a door. Mom opened her mouth and found no words cued. Liam stepped closer, enough that I could feel the solidness of a person who didn't need me to fold to love me. My phone buzzed. His name lit the screen with a simple text he'd sent minutes earlier from the entryway. "I'm here. Whatever you decide." What I decided was not to explain, not to soothe, not to perform grief for people who had mastered the optics of it. I turned, and the old floorboards carried me toward the door with a courage I recognized as mine, dull-edged and finally sharpened. "I didn't ask for this money," I said without turning back, "but it's mine now, and I'm done being cornered for what someone else thought I deserved." Outside, the air felt colder, cleaner, like the house had been a mouth I'd finally stepped out of. On the walk to the car, Maria's smile flickered. Not triumph exactly, but confirmation. "They won't stop," she said. "They'll just try a softer version first, then a louder one." "I know," I said, buckling in. A sparrow shrieked from the hedges like a rubber tire squealing into a turn. "Let them change costumes. I'm not changing my answer." As we pulled away, Liam reached across the console and laced his fingers with mine. My phone lit again. A group chat notification. Family. May. Immediate. The first of many. In my head, I heard Grandpa's voice for the first time in years, the sentence he repeated like a small prayer whenever I showed him the things I made with my hands. "Good hands, Anita. You build things that last." I didn't have a blueprint for what came next, but I knew this much. I was done building rooms for people who only entered to rearrange the furniture. For 3 days after that ambush, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no posts, just silence. The kind of silence that hums like a live wire behind your walls. Not peace, but preparation. Maria called it the quiet stage. "They'll retreat, Anita," she warned me. "People like that don't disappear. They regroup. They'll start rewriting the story." And she was right. On the 4th day, the campaign began. Not in court, not in conversation, but online. A black and white photo of my grandfather appeared on Facebook, uploaded by my cousin Jessica, the one who once called him a grumpy old miser for refusing to fund her failed candle business. Her caption was a masterpiece of emotional manipulation. "He always said family comes first." I just wish everyone remembered that. No tags, no names, but everyone knew who she meant. The comments poured in like gasoline. "So sad what money does to people. Some folks only show up when there's a check involved." "Your mom deserves better, Jess." I scrolled through them with numb fingers. It was like watching someone narrate my life while erasing me from it. The next day, my Aunt Denise chimed in with her own poetic contribution about how greed poisons love. Then my sister quietly removed me from our shared Netflix account, not blocked, just deleted. A small, digital exile. It would have been funny if it didn't sting. Liam tried to make me laugh about it. At least you don't have to pay for her rom-com marathons anymore, he joked softly, pulling me against his chest. Let them spin their stories. They're doing it because you stopped playing your role. He was right, but I hated how easily they could paint me as the villain for simply inheriting something. That night, I opened a folder on my laptop and titled it In Harry Drama. Screenshots, messages, dates. Every post and text went in there. Maria called it pattern documentation. I called it insurance. I stopped replying to every little jab, every guilt-soaked, "We're just hurt, Anita" message. I didn't react, not once, because I finally understood. In this family, silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Still, there were moments when the quiet pressed down on me. The kind of nights when you stare at the ceiling and wonder if peace should really feel this lonely. On one of those nights, I drove to the cemetery. No one knew I went. Not Mom, not Liam, not even Maria. I took a paper cup of black coffee and an old wooden box I had made in high school shop class. The first thing Grandpa ever complimented me on. I set it at the base of his headstone. The air was thick and unmoving. I kept my promise, I whispered. I built something that lasts. Somewhere deep inside, it felt like he heard me. By the time I got home, the storm hit. Not rain, but another letter. This time from a firm I didn't recognize. Legal letterhead. Threats wrapped in professionalism. They were challenging the will. The claim that my grandfather had been influenced under emotional duress by me. That he wasn't of sound mind when he named me sole beneficiary. It was absurd, offensive even. I forwarded it to Maria. She called within minutes. They're bluffing, Anita. No judge will touch this without evidence. So what do? We respond once. Then we make it clear. Any more of this, and we countersue for harassment. Within 24 hours, she sent the reply, attached with the notarized video of Grandpa signing the will in his lawyer's office. No hesitation, no confusion. Just an old man with clear eyes and a steady hand writing my name. We closed the email with a line that made my chest ache with pride. Any further disputes without factual basis will be considered defamation and pursued accordingly. That should have been the end of it. But I should have remembered what Maria said. They never stop at no. Because 2 days later, I got a call from my dad. He never called unless he needed help setting up his Wi-Fi or wanted to guilt-trip me about missing a family birthday. His voice was oddly calm. Your mother wants to talk again. Just us this time. No lawyers. I nearly laughed. Same place? I asked. Same place. Sunday. The last time I'd stepped into that house, they tried to trap me with papers and guilt. Now they wanted a conversation. Liam frowned when I told him. You really think they'll play fair this time? No, I said, but I don't need them to. I just need to be ready. That night, Maria called again. If they try anything, she said, let them. Just make sure we're recording this time. So I agreed. Sunday came fast. The morning air was sharp, clear, the kind that cuts straight through nerves and excuses. I didn't wear anything formal this time. No dress, no makeup, just jeans, a gray hoodie, and the same boots I wore to every hard conversation. Liam drove. Maria followed in her car, tablet under her arm. When we parked 2 blocks away, I saw it instantly. Mom's driveway full again. Another family circus, just waiting for its ringleader. Liam grabbed my hand before I got out. You don't have to prove anything, he murmured. You already won. I nodded, but he didn't understand. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about ending it. As I walked up the steps, Mom opened the door before I could knock. Same too bright smile as before. Glad you came, Anita, she said. Her eyes flicked over my shoulder to the street where Maria's car was parked. Oh, you brought her again. Of course, I said lightly. Wouldn't want to repeat last time's misunderstanding, right? Her smile faltered. Inside, the furniture had changed again. No cozy living room circle this time. The dining table had been cleared, lined with chairs like a press conference. 2 new lawyers sat at the head of the table. Fresh faces, newer suits. My sister sat beside them, eyes down, hands folded. Her guilt was almost visible. Small, quiet, gnawing. Please, one of the lawyers said smoothly. Sit down. We'd like to present a possible compromise. Maria stayed standing. Let's see it, she said, tone calm, but sharp enough to cut glass. They handed her the folder. Same idea, different words. Transfer the inheritance to a family-managed trust. Everyone shares. Everyone benefits. Everyone stays united. I looked at Mom. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Then I smiled. Funny, I said quietly. I brought something too. Maria opened her tablet, tapped record, and turned the camera toward them. For the record, she said, please confirm this is a voluntary discussion and that my client is under no coercion or emotional pressure. The lawyers froze. My sister's eyes darted to Mom, panicked. You don't need to record this, Mom snapped. Maria didn't blink. Then confirm there's no coercion. Nobody spoke. So I picked up the contract. Read the first line, the third, the last, and then I tore it cleanly in half. You don't get to keep trying until I break, I said softly. This was your second chance. It's also your last. I dropped the halves onto the polished table. The sound was small, but it felt seismic. That moment, right there, was the end of something. Not just the inheritance war, but the illusion that I could ever be talked back into obedience. When I left that house for the second and final time, the silence behind me was different. Not waiting, not plotting, just hollow. Liam met me at the car. Maria exhaled slowly beside me. They'll go quiet now, she said. But this time, it's not strategy, it's defeat. I watched the house in the rearview mirror as we drove away. It looked smaller, like every lie inside it had finally run out of space to stand. It took less than a week for the silence to settle again. This time, not as a threat, but as an ending that no one wanted to say out loud. No texts, no cryptic Facebook quotes, no sudden family unity messages. Nothing. If the first silence had been loaded with tension, this one was just empty. It should have felt peaceful, but peace doesn't feel like relief when it's built on rubble. Maria finalized the cease and desist letter that week. Short, clean, surgical. Any future attempt to contact Ms. May regarding this inheritance will be considered harassment and pursued as such. She CC'd every family member involved, every firm they had hired, and even their consulting attorney. It was over, legally at least. But closure isn't the same as quiet. One evening, I found myself scrolling through old photos, ones I'd ignored for years. Birthdays, graduations, holidays where my smile looked pasted on. In every single one, my sister stood beside Mom, radiant, centered, chosen. And there I was, half lit, half blurred, half forgotten. Liam caught me staring at one picture for too long. You know, he said softly, you don't have to keep looking for reasons to justify standing up for yourself. I'm not, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. I just want to understand how I missed all the signs. Because you thought loyalty meant love, he murmured. And you learned it didn't. His words landed like truth often does, gently then hard. That night, my sister called. I almost didn't answer. But something in me, some tired, curious ache, hit accept. Her voice was quiet, thick. I didn't know they were doing that, she said. You didn't say anything, I replied. A pause. Then, they told me it was just going to be a discussion, Anita, that no lawyers would show up. Then you walked in with Maria, and Mom... She broke off. You should have seen her face. I did, I said. It's burned into mine. She gave a shaky laugh that sounded too small for all that history. You know, they told me Grandpa never really liked you, that he only left you the money because he didn't trust them. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Maybe he didn't like me, I said, but I think he respected me. There's a difference. She hesitated. They're saying you turned your back on the family, she whispered, that you let that lawyer twist everything. I closed my eyes. No. What I did was refuse to let the same people who ignored me for years decide what I was worth. There was silence on the line. Then a quiet, I get it now, and I'm sorry. It wasn't much, but it wasn't nothing. After the call, I finally opened the small envelope Grandpa's lawyer had handed me weeks ago. I hadn't touched it since the will reading. Too many fires to put out, too much noise. Inside were 3 letters, one to me, one to Maria, and one written to himself. The one addressed to me was short, shaky, but deliberate. You were the only one who never asked me for anything. That's why I gave you everything. People will come for it. Let them. But don't give them your peace. That's worth more than money. I read it once, then again, then a third time. The paper felt warm in my hands, even though it was old. It hit me then. He had known. He'd known exactly how this would unfold, exactly who they'd become when the money hit the floor. And somehow he'd trusted me to survive it. The next morning I called Maria. I want to do something with it, I said. The inheritance? She asked. No, I said. The meaning. She waited. She's good at that. I want to start something in his name, I continued. Something that helps kids like my friend Jordan. Remember him? aged out of foster care with a garbage bag and no one to call. People like him could have used someone like Grandpa. Maria smiled. I could hear it through the line. That, she said, is exactly what he would have wanted you to build. So we began the paperwork. Weeks passed. I slept better, ate real food again, laughed sometimes. But grief is weird. It sneaks in when you least expect it. Like one afternoon when I was grocery shopping and saw a woman about Mom's age arguing with her daughter over a brand of soup. The daughter sighed, patient, practiced, worn down. And for a second, I saw myself, trapped in the endless loop of pleasing someone who would never be pleased. I walked past them, pretending not to feel anything, but the ache stayed with me. That night, I got another voicemail. Unknown number. It was Uncle Brian. Look, Anita, we can't keep doing this, he began. His voice was heavy with fake regret. Your mother's a wreck. Maybe you don't care, but the rest of us are trying to move forward. Be reasonable before this gets ugly. That phrase, before this gets ugly, hung in the air long after the message ended. It wasn't a plea, it was a warning. And that was the moment I realized my family wasn't done. They had just changed tactics. When people can't control you, they'll try to control your story. By the time I got that voicemail from Uncle Brian, my family's version of events had already gone viral, at least within their little church and cousin circuit. In their retelling, I was the ungrateful niece, the greedy daughter, the girl who used a dead man's will to tear her family apart. And the thing is, I didn't even care anymore. Not because the lies didn't hurt. They did. But because I finally understood something my grandfather had written in that letter. Peace is more valuable than approval. Still, I didn't want that inheritance to rot in a bank account under my name. I wanted it to mean something. So, Maria and I finalized the paperwork for the WR Foundation. William Roberts, my grandfather's initials. Our mission was simple, to provide trade school grants for young adults who'd aged out of foster care or had no family support, not scholarships for bright stars, not loans for promising youths, just chances for the kids who had none. The first grant application that caught my eye came from a 19-year-old named Jordan Vance. He'd been living in his car while finishing an electrical certification program. His handwriting was shaky. His essay started with, I don't want a miracle. I just need a chance to finish what I started. I called him myself. Jordan, this is Anita May from the WR Foundation. I've read your application. Silence on the line. I'm calling to tell you, you're getting it. No strings attached. He didn't say anything for almost 10 seconds. Then a breath, uneven and real. No one's ever just given me anything. Well, I said softly, neither did they for me, but we build our own chances now. When I hung up, something inside me loosened, like I'd exhaled years of waiting for someone else's permission to feel proud. But pride, I learned, has a strange side effect. It draws out people who think they're owed a piece of it. It started small, a cousin's friendly text about whether the foundation could sponsor her daughter's art trip. Then a message from my aunt about a short-term loan. I ignored them. Then came Derek, my cousin, who'd once called me the luckiest leech alive, in a group chat he forgot I was still in. He messaged me out of the blue one Thursday morning. Hey, cuz, no hard feelings about before. Just wondering if the foundation does emergency support too. My truck engine blew and I can't work till it's fixed. Would mean a lot. No apology, no reflection, just need, disguised as reconnection. I didn't reply. 4 hours later, another message. I get it. You're the big shot now. Just don't forget where you came from. That made me laugh out loud. Because I remembered exactly where I came from. From birthday cards with unsigned checks. From hand-me-downs disguised as generosity. From a mother who toasted my sister at a dinner table and told everyone she was the daughter she was proud of. No, I hadn't forgotten. Meanwhile, the family's social media theater evolved. Jessica posted Bible verses about forgiveness. Aunt Denise shared a meme about how money reveals the heart. Even my mother's church friends started liking comments that called me the lost one. Liam saw it all and said nothing. Just quietly changed my Facebook privacy settings and blocked half of them before I could. You don't have to read what doesn't deserve your eyes, he said simply. That night, I looked around my apartment, the same one I'd nearly lost when they drained my savings years ago for family emergencies. Now, the bills were on autopay. The lights stayed on because I paid for them. And for the first time in my adult life, no one could pull the plug. That realization was almost holy. 2 months later, Maria called me with an idea. There's a community event next month, something small about trades and second chances. They want someone to speak about resilience. You'd be perfect. I almost said no. I wasn't a speaker. I was just someone who survived. But then I thought of Jordan, that 19-year-old who'd kept studying in his car because quitting wasn't an option. So I said yes. The event was held in a worn-out community hall that smelled faintly of sawdust and hope. Maybe 40 people came. Teens, veterans, single parents, and a few faces that carried the same tired determination I'd seen in my mirror for years. When it was my turn, I didn't have a speech, just truth. Being underestimated, I said, isn't the worst thing. Sometimes it's the gift that teaches you how to rise when no one else is watching. I was told for years that I was the difficult one, the one who didn't fit the family mold. But here's the thing. Molds are for things meant to stay the same. People are meant to grow. When I stepped down, the applause wasn't loud. It was soft, steady, honest. And that meant more than any hollow praise I'd ever begged for before. After the event, a man about my age came up to me. Rough hands, nervous energy, voice trembling like a dam about to break. My brother took everything when our parents died, he said. Said I wasn't smart enough to manage it. I've been working double shifts ever since. What would you do? I looked him in the eye and said, I'd let them lose sleep, and I'd build a life so solid they can't buy their way back into it. He nodded, one sharp, heavy nod, and walked away. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, looking out at the quiet street. The world finally felt still, not because everyone else had stopped talking, but because I'd stopped listening to the wrong voices. For years, I thought winning meant finally being loved the way I should have been. But it wasn't. Winning meant not needing their love to keep living. The story wasn't about money anymore. It was about reclaiming the right to define what peace looked like. And mine looked like this: a foundation in my grandfather's name, a small apartment that was completely mine, and a heart no longer shaped by guilt. Stop! 6 months passed before I saw my sister again. She showed up on a rainy afternoon, no text, no warning, just a small knock on my door and a trembling silhouette behind the glass. For a second, I almost didn't open it. Part of me was afraid that letting her in would pull me back into the gravity I'd worked so hard to escape. But I did open it, slowly. She looked smaller than I remembered, less polished, more human. The guilt that had been flickering in her eyes during that second family meeting had turned into something softer, heavier. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. Yeah. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once cried after Mom told me I should share the inheritance if I had any heart at all. This time, there were no lawyers, no cameras, no prepared speeches, just two sisters, and years of unspoken words hanging between us like invisible cobwebs. She broke the silence first. I didn't know what they were planning, Anita. Not really. I thought it was just going to be a talk. Then they handed me those papers and I froze. I didn't reply. I just watched her fingers twist around the hem of her sleeve. Mom still thinks she was right, she went on. She tells people you'll come to your senses when the money runs out. I let out a dry laugh. Then she's in for a long wait. That got a small smile out of her. Then she whispered, I came to say I was wrong. I'm sorry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't tearful. It was just real. And that made it hit harder than any performance could have. I believe you, I said quietly. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. She nodded. Fair. We sat in silence for a long time, the kind of silence that doesn't demand to be filled. When she finally stood to leave, she hesitated at the door. You did the right thing, Anita. Grandpa would have been proud. That was the first time anyone in my family had said his name without turning it into a weapon. After she left, I sat alone for a while, listening to the rain soften against the windows. Some part of me wanted to call Mom, to tell her I didn't hate her, that I just couldn't keep being her scapegoat. But then my phone buzzed. A voicemail. Mom. Her tone was measured, calm, the kind she used when she wanted to sound rational while twisting the knife. I heard about the foundation, she said. I hope it helps someone, but don't think it erases how you treated us. You've hurt this family more than you know. I deleted it before it finished. Some people confuse boundaries with betrayal, but I wasn't betraying my family. I was just done funding my own mistreatment. The funny thing about family money is this. When you don't have it, you're expected to be grateful for scraps. And when you finally do, they act like it was always meant to be shared with them. But I wasn't sharing anymore. 2 weeks later, Maria called. She sounded amused. You've been mentioned in another inheritance dispute case, she said. Different family, same tactics. The judge's statement read, Inheritance is not a democratic process. Thought you'd appreciate that. I laughed. Put that on a t-shirt. She chuckled. How's the foundation? Growing, I said. Jordan finished his program. He starts an apprenticeship next month. That's something, Anita. It's everything, I replied. I hung up and stared at the framed photo on my shelf, the only one I kept of Grandpa. His eyes looked tired but kind, like he'd seen too many storms and still chose to build. And I realized I'd spent so many years trying to earn love from people who only understood leverage. But he had loved me quietly, without ever saying it out loud, through that will, through that trust, through the faith that I'd know what to do when the wolves came. He hadn't just left me money, he'd left me a mirror. Later that week, I stopped by the grocery store after work. The air smelled like wet asphalt and coffee. I was halfway back to my car when I heard it. Anita? I turned. Mom was standing a few steps away, clutching a paper bag of apples. She looked different, not older, just smaller, like she'd been living off old anger that finally ran out. We stood there for a long moment, rain tapping against the parking lot. I heard about the foundation, she said. I'm not here to talk about the money. Good, I said quietly, because that part's done. She nodded once, then, after a beat, I never hated you. I waited for the rest of the sentence, for the manipulation that usually came after, but it never came. I nodded. I know. Then I got in my car and drove away. She didn't chase. She didn't yell. She just stood there, smaller than I'd ever seen her. And for the first time in our entire history, she had nothing left to hold over me. No story where I was the villain. No guilt card left to play. That night, I opened the last of Grandpa's letters, the one he'd written to himself. It wasn't meant for anyone to read, just notes and fragments of thought. But one line stood out, underlined twice in shaky ink. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what they can't take from you. I closed the letter and smiled through tears. He was right. It was never about the money. It was about control, about finally deciding that I would no longer be the one who bends first, apologizes first, or breaks just to keep others comfortable. The inheritance didn't change me. It revealed me. And when they tried to corner me with guilt and polished lies, I didn't fold. I stood my ground and said the words that changed everything. Funny, I brought someone too. That was the moment they realized I wasn't the one being played. I was the one holding the rules.